The first thing I noticed was the silence, not the comfortable, ordinary quiet of space between planets, but a heavy, oppressive silence that pressed against the hull of my ship. I had been expecting chatter from the interstellar traffic channels, the hum of distant mining vessels, or even the static bursts from alien probes. Instead, there was nothing, an empty void, save for the eerie glow of a distant nebula filtering through my cockpit. I had been piloting Cassandra for over 6 months, transporting rare minerals from the outer belts to orbital stations near the Perseus cluster. Routine missions were my specialty. But that day, routine ended. It started with a signal, faint and almost imperceptible. At first, I thought it was a glitch in my NAV system, a random pulse of interference bouncing off the gas clouds. But the frequency was oddly regular, almost deliberate. My curiosity got the better of me. I adjusted the ship's sensors to track it. As I honed in, the signal formed a pattern, a call of some kind. And then, without warning, my autopilot locked onto it. I tried to override, but the controls didn't respond. It was as if the ship had developed its own will, nudging me gently, inexorably toward the source. It wasn't until a massive shape came into view that I realized how far off course I had been led. A colossal vessel, unlike anything in any database I'd ever accessed, floated like a predatory leviathan among the stars. Its hull shimmered with iridescent hues that seemed alive, shifting from violet to crimson in impossible gradients. The surface was dotted with openings that resembled eyes, and in the distance, a faint glow suggested some sort of energy core. And somewhere inside that monstrous structure, I knew the signal had originated. I had made a mistake, one wrong signal, and I had arrived at the domain of the alien queen. The arrival. Docking was impossible. The ship's hull had no recognizable ports, and any attempt to approach triggered invisible energy pulses that pushed me back. But then a section of the hull began to shimmer, forming a doorway. The signal I had followed pulsed stronger. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command. My heart pounded as the Cassandra was pulled through the shimmering portal. Systems overloaded, alarms blaring. I braced myself for impact. The ship emerged into a cavernous docking bay, illuminated by a bioluminescent light that seemed to seep from the walls themselves. The atmosphere was breathable, surprisingly, yet there was a tension in the air that made the hairs on my arms rise. I stepped out of my cockpit, spacesuit still intact, and surveyed the chamber. It was vast, almost impossibly so. Towers of crystalline structures rose like spires, their surfaces pulsing rhythmically. Shadows moved within them. Tall, live figures that watched me but never approached. A voice echoed in my mind before it reached my ears. You are not meant to be here. The alien queen. I froze, unable to speak. The voice was not merely sound. It was a presence, a weight pressing directly on my thoughts. Every instinct screamed to run, yet my legs refused to obey. Why do you come? I followed a signal. I stammered, my voice trembling. I didn't mean to intrude. The figures in the shadows shifted, and then she appeared. She was more magnificent than any holographic depiction I had ever seen, more terrifying than any warship. Her form was elegant yet alien, with skin that shimmered like molten silver and eyes that glowed with the intensity of distant stars. Crown-like spires rose from her head, and her gaze seemed to pierce through me. One wrong signal can cost worlds, she said, her voice resonating through my entire being. Yet you are here. Why? I'm just a miner, I said. I transport minerals. I wasn't trying to. Lies are useless here, she interrupted. All truths are known. The test. She studied me, her presence overwhelming. I could feel her curiosity, as if she were sifting through my memories, reading my intentions before I even had a chance to act. Then, as suddenly as she had appeared, she gestured, and the figures in the shadows moved closer. They were humanoid, yes, but elongated, with multiple limbs and translucent skin. They didn't speak. They simply surrounded me, scanning, probing. I felt exposed, like an insect under a magnifying glass. You have knowledge, the Queen said, of metal, energy, of human machinery. That may be useful or it may be irrelevant. Survival will determine which. I realized she wasn't asking. She was declaring. Survival. That would be my test. She led me through the glowing corridors of her vessel. Every step echoed in my chest, as if the ship itself were alive and breathing. I was shown chambers of alien life, creatures in suspended animation, ecosystems impossible by human standards, energy matrices humming with untamed power. Finally, we reached a chamber with a transparent floor. Below, a swirling mass of stars and matter coalesced into a miniature galaxy contained within a force field. This, she said, is what you could lose by being wrong. Worlds, lives, civilizations, all fragile, all contingent on choices you do not understand. I swallowed hard, aware that every decision I made in the coming hours could indeed be catastrophic. You will undergo the trial of reflection, she continued. Only by confronting your own nature can you hope to leave. The trial. I was led into a spherical chamber, walls covered in a shifting, liquid-like substance that reflected not my physical form, but my thoughts, memories, and fears. Images flashed before me. The miners I had worked with, the shipments I had made, the accidents I had survived. But soon the visions became darker. Missed opportunities, moments of selfishness, lies I had told, mistakes I had ignored. Each memory pressed on me with unbearable weight. A voice, unmistakably hers, echoed, "Do you understand the consequences of your choices?" "Yes," I whispered. "I do." "Then confront them." I tried to, but the chamber resisted. My failures became tangible, pressing against me in the form of sharp, spectral shapes. I ran, dodged, tried to reason, but every action only intensified the reflection. Then, in a moment of clarity, I stopped. I accepted. I faced each failure, each lie, each selfish choice without trying to hide or escape. The chamber stilled. The shapes dissolved. The walls shimmered and became transparent. I saw the stars beyond, the infinite expanse of space, and realized I had survived the trial. The Queen's judgment. When the chamber opened, she was waiting. Her eyes no longer seemed harsh, but curious, almost approving. "Few humans survived the trial," she said. "You have acknowledged your nature and its limits. That is the first step toward understanding the balance of life beyond your world." I breathed, feeling the tension in my body ease slightly. "You will not leave empty-handed," she continued. "The knowledge you possess can aid us if used wisely, and you will carry a warning back to your kind. One wrong signal can indeed reach far beyond its origin. You have seen the consequences firsthand. I nodded, humbled. I had thought I was merely a miner, a transporter, insignificant in the grand scale of the galaxy. But here, in the presence of the alien queen, I understood the fragility of life, the responsibility of knowledge, and the terrifying weight of a single choice. The departure. I was escorted back to my ship. The portal reopened, the ship's systems returning to my control. I glanced back at the queen, who stood at the edge of the glowing docking chamber. Her eyes met mine, and for a fraction of a second, I saw not judgment, but understanding. The ship disengaged from the vessel, and I accelerated into open space. The signal that had led me here faded into the background of cosmic noise. I would never know if it was a trap, a test, or merely a coincidence. What I did know was that I had seen the Queen's power and survived. As I navigated back to the Persis cluster, I reflected on the lessons of the journey. The galaxy was larger, stranger, and far more dangerous than I had imagined. And one wrong signal, one careless choice, could bring a human ship, and perhaps an entire planet, into the orbit of forces it could never comprehend. But I also carried hope. Survival, understanding, and the memory of the alien queen's gaze reminded me that knowledge, humility, and courage could bridge the gap between species, even across the vast gulf of the stars. I set my course for home, heart pounding, mind racing, forever changed. And somewhere out there I knew the alien queen watched, calculating, waiting, and perhaps, just perhaps, recognizing a human capable of learning from the stars.